Welcome to Instruction Discussion, our weekly look at the latest topics and trends in education affecting schools here on Long Island and schools around the world. Whether you're a teacher, parent, or student, listen for tips and strategies to help you navigate the educational landscape. There's a bell. It's time to start today's Instruction Discussion on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.
Hello, I'm Kevin Boston Hill, and welcome to Instruction Discussion, where each week we will examine a recent trend or development in education and its impact on Long Island. Today, we take a look at a sector of our higher education community that has garnered a lot of attention lately: historically Black colleges and universities, or HBCUs. It is no secret that the Democratic vice presidential candidate attended an HBCU, as have millions of others throughout their history, a history that is steeped in a tradition of educational excellence. That being said, while HBCUs frequently experience issues different from their white counterparts, they have been faced with the same current challenges this pandemic has presented, most notably how to pivot to maintain student enrollment. Joining us today to discuss how his school is meeting these challenges is Provost and Senior Vice President of Virginia Union University, Dr. Terrell Strayhorn. Welcome to Instruction Discussion on 90.3 WHPC.
Thank you so much, Kevin. It's a great honor to be here and be part of your show. I'm looking forward to this discussion to talk about historically Black colleges and universities in the country today, to talk about their storied history and their contemporary contributions. As you mentioned, I am Provost and Senior Vice President for Academic Affairs here at Virginia Union University, which is a historically Black college. We've been around for 155 years in the capital city of the state of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia. And as you mentioned, have been responsible for educating training leaders in all sectors: business, education, politics, religion. So I'm looking forward to talking about it. I mean, this is my home state of Virginia, and many who will listen to your show will know that Virginia Union counts among its many notable alumni the former governor and first elected Black governor in the country, not in the state of Virginia, but in the country, L. Douglas Wilder, who was a chemistry major here at Virginia Union, went on and still making a difference in local politics. And so it's just a delight to be here and talk about this important topic. Well, no, again, thank you for coming on. And you kind of you jumped the gun a little bit for me, but that's fine. So I wanted to actually, let's elaborate a little bit. So what's a little bit of the history of Virginia Union? When did it get founded? What were some of the circumstances around its founding? And kind of lead us into today's discussion. So Virginia Union University has a storied history. I mean, in many ways, I think we were just talking about this in a previous sort of moment or episode where, I think we often talk about the HBCU story. What is that narrative? And, there are about 100 historically Black colleges and universities in the country today. At one point in time, at its highest, they were over 130. So, these precious institutions that represent just 3% of all colleges and universities in the U.S. We've got over 4,300 colleges and universities, half of those being two-year community colleges, and then a precious and important 100 of them being historically Black colleges that, like Virginia Union University, are a mix of public and private. Virginia Union is a private, historically Black college in Richmond, Virginia. It was founded, as like many of them, first as a school of theology. And so, the present name, Virginia Union University, was adopted in 1899 when Richmond Theological Institute and Wayland Seminary, these were two separate schools, came together in a merger. And the merger of those two schools became what we now call Virginia Union University. And interestingly enough, in 1932, Hartshorne Memorial College, which was actually a women's college, merged with those two previous institutions to form even larger the Virginia Union that we know now. So I think that, we've come out of this history of theological education. We've come out of this history of merger. We've come out of this history around women's education. One of our historic buildings was formerly Lumpkin's Jail. So I think the whole story around the Black struggle for freedom and liberation and trying to educate and inspire learners who would go off to lead the country in its quest to live up to its democratic principles of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That's at the heart of our institution. It's at the heart of many historically Black colleges. But that's the story of Virginia Union University. Now today, we are complex, comprehensive, research university with a strong liberal arts tradition. We're offering undergraduate degrees and master's degrees and doctoral degrees across 7 schools or academic divisions. We have a School of Arts and Sciences, School of Education, School of Business, a historic and renowned School of Theology, the same as with Proctor School of Theology. We have a university college where most of our first-year students begin their journey, their educational journey. We've got a School of Latin American and Caribbean Studies. And then, as you may know, we just recently launched VUU Global, which is our global initiative allowing us to take the HBCU experience to the world.
That is wonderful, especially the history part of it. There was part of that history. I didn't know the story of how the whole name came about as far as the consolidation of several schools coming together, and not only schools, but a prison as well. So it really goes to show how we were able to transform segments of the society for its betterment by going through the avenue of education. So, I mean, it sounds cliche, but education is the route to success, and Virginia Union University is a testament to that.
That's exactly right. I'm from Virginia, born in Virginia Beach, Virginia, which is about an hour and a half from where Virginia Union is located in Richmond, Virginia. So I didn't grow up in Richmond. I did not attend Virginia Union, but I was just speaking with a member of our Board of Trustees this morning and mentioned to her that, I'm just so impressed by the story and the contributions, but even more so the contemporary positioning of the university. I mean, you start talking about the academic preparation of educational leaders in the state of Virginia. And remember, Virginia it's a major player in the nation. It's, part of the original Confederacy, of course. It is the city of Richmond is the state's capital. Virginia, Williamsburg, the founding of Jamestown, all of that history that we all learn about, not just those from Virginia, is in the state. And when you start thinking about the preparation of academic leaders who go on to be principals and superintendents and even college presidents, there are so many who were trained here at Virginia Union. And so I think, since 1865, when the university was founded, and it was founded like most historically Black colleges first to give newly emancipated slaves, newly emancipated freedmen the opportunity to be trained, because this is something really important for us as a country to remember, especially in the middle of this, historic sort of racial reckoning that we're witnessing all across the country. We saw a lot of it this summer. We'll see it through the fall, I think even into 2021. And that is that the United States is the only country where it was once illegal to educate African Americans. Not unpopular, not, due to it was illegal that one could be charged and then locked up for educating an African American or Black person to read, write, and know arithmetic, as they would have said it back then. And so it's out of that context that these institutions were founded and established to give Black Americans access to education. And even our own institution in the state of Virginia, since that time, I mean, we embrace the African diaspora. We embrace the role that we play in the and racial uplift and the strengthening of Black communities. But here's the thing that happened over the course of time. Just like any other institution, we open up our doors of access. I mean, I believe if you look at the history, it's pretty clear that Virginia Union has never actually closed its doors to any groups. And although we are historically Black college, we are not an exclusively Black college. At Virginia Union and HBCUs are a place where white students and Latino students and Asian students and LGBTQIA students, regardless of the political affiliation or the religious mindset, students gain access to education and then go on to really rewarding careers. And so that's the important role that HBCUs have played and continue to play. And I think we're going to see, and we have seen even more recently, that role becomes amplified, right? As you said, there are students and parents, I like to say aunties and grandmas and grandpas, who want their student to go to a place where they know that student will be cared about, respected, valued. Their life will matter. They will be safe. And historically, Black colleges get to, amplify their voices, tell their story that this is a place. I mean, Virginia Union is a place where Black lives have always mattered. It's just not in vogue now. You can look at our cast of graduates and alumni across racial and ethnic backgrounds and see that many people have traversed this campus and moved on to long life of servitude and support and working in various sectors as leaders and really, like we like to say, scholar practitioners in their field. So I think that I hope that those who listen to this episode will leave inspired in knowing that the institutions have a historic mission, but many of them have a very inclusive and equitable vision for today that accommodates all learners.
And it's very important that you brought that up, and I'm glad you did, because one of the things that, or one of the messages or themes that seems to be common from anyone that I've spoken to about attending an HBCU, and I didn't get a chance to attend one myself, but everyone that I've spoken to who has attended an HBCU has spoken about either A, the great diversity that exists on those campuses, and B, the fact that all the professors it was like a family environment, because all the professors on campus knew who you were and they looked out for you. And no matter what grade level that you were in, even if you had a professor as a freshman, they still looked out for you all the way through until you graduated, and even beyond that. So they would write recommendations, and you could come back and visit, and they would check on to see how you were doing professionally and so forth. So I think those are two very important messages to get across to our families and our listeners here, because even though the name says historically Black college or university, that's not where it ends. It may have been where it began, so to speak, but that's not where it ends, and that's not what it's all about. It's about the great diversity, and it's about that small knit, that close knit family type of atmosphere that you may not get from a predominantly white university, where you go in and the fear is you're going to just be a number. At least at an HBCU, you're not just a number. You're actually, people know you, and they look out for you and they take care of you.
And the research about historically Black colleges can be categorized into sort of, the way I think about it, a couple of categories, right? There's a good deal of published research on the history of Black colleges. And that's where you'll find the story of, like I said earlier, the Lumpkins jail, a former slave jail that was owned by Mary Ann Lumpkin, the African-American widow to a deceased white owner. So you've got Lumpkins jail that becomes Richmond Theological Institute, and then Richmond Theological Institute merges with Wayland Seminary to become Virginia Union University. That kind of story of merger and transformation and change, and the connection between, the history of slavery in this country and access, educational opportunity for Black Americans, that's embedded in the history of HBCU. That's one segment of literature. The other segment of literature we have, I think, there are scholars who think about leadership of historically Black colleges, studies on presidents. Shameless plug for those who might listen to your episode as graduate students. We don't have a whole lot of research on provosts and chief academic officers at historically Black colleges, or really many other functional areas. We got some on fundraising, but, we don't have a whole lot about what's happening in enrollment management at historically Black colleges. So for those who are doing theses and dissertations, there's a potential topic for you. But we've got some research on leadership of HBCUs. And then I say the third sort of major category really looks at students who attend historically Black colleges. And most of that literature focuses on Black students at historically Black colleges, which was the predominant population up until about the 80s, when Black students' access to predominantly white institutions had opened up so much that you had almost just as many Black students at white schools as you had at Black schools. And you also saw many more white students, Asian, and international students studying at historically Black colleges, right? And so now, as you said, we've got a diverse student body. By the way, this is really important for those who are listening, that although we are historically Black colleges, our faculty has always been, I would say, even more diverse than the student body in many ways. We have a large number of international, white, and Black and biracial, and from all racial and ethnic groups and walks of life on our faculty. And back in sometime in the mid 2000s, I did a study with some colleagues about student affairs professionals at historically Black colleges, and learned that the metaphor that really matches the way that they think about their work is more like you just mentioned, Kevin, and that is that they see themselves almost like surrogate family members. I mean, I at my previous institution, this was all pre-COVID, of course, I was vice president for academic and student affairs. And but none of my students called me that. They called me BP, for short. Many of them called me Unc, as uncle for short. I think that the historically Black colleges, because of their size, and really the word is commitment, their commitment to the individual and the individual's goals and the individual's process of learning, they become very intimate kinds of environments where people easily go above and beyond the call of duty on a regular basis. They get to know students well inside and outside the classroom. They foster really tight-knit communities where students feel connected, cared about, as if you belong. And, I was trained at really large, predominantly white institutions, and it takes nothing from those institutions because I had great experiences, got a good education. But, I think, to tell my own story a bit, as an African-American male, growing up in Virginia, going off to college, I experienced the birth of my first child. And I was at a very large, highly ranked, predominantly white institution where not only was I the only Black male, probably in the freshman or sophomore class with a child, I was probably one of the very few on the whole campus. So it was isolating and alienating, and the institution had not, had a history of accommodating learners who had dependents. So there weren't programs and services for me. Fortunately, with the support of my family, my church family, and several administrators, I was able to make it through and get my degree in time. But then I come to, Virginia Union, or my previous institution, historically Black colleges, where they've always served first generation students. They've always served students who, might be low income. And let me tell you this, we have always had students who come with either dependence or responsibilities, family and work responsibilities outside of the campus. So what does that mean for those who are listening to your episode, for your son, daughter, niece, or nephew? It means that they're coming to an institution that has a history of providing the kind of support that they need to be successful. We've got a record, as we say now, check our record. We have a history of being able to support learners, to provide work-life balance, to connect them to the financial resources that they need, the mental health and the counseling resources that might be important. So I think that's really important, because what I'm learning today is that college students are looking for colleges that match them and their needs. And so when you're searching for a college, I know that lots of students think about this very pragmatically. It is, I want to go to the college that gives me the most money. And that's really, really important. But you also want to think about a college that provides the kind of support, academic and social, that you need to get where you're trying to go in the world.
Let's fast forward a little bit and really talk about what's happening with Virginia Union today. So what was the impetus for VUU Global, and I guess what were some of the goals and objectives?
What has happened with the advance of technology is we now live in a society where people have just-in-time access to information. I mean, we consume gobs and gobs of information throughout the day, every minute and second. And so I think this has put pressure on colleges and universities who are so committed to the traditional instructional delivery mode. And that is, you got to be in a classroom with a professor who stands in front of you and talks to you. You take tests and quizzes. And that's, that model serves a certain segment of the learner population, and it's here to stay. But we've also got to transform and innovate our institutions to match the needs of today's learner. Today's learner has questions and wants to learn, sometimes at midnight, sometimes while they're visiting, friends in another state. And so we realize the need to take our curriculums, to take our educational opportunities, and to really take the HBCU experience to the cloud, to the world. And so that's what VUU Global does. It allows us to now deliver high quality educational programming and experiences on a global platform. This is a mix of, we just had our first installment, our first session of the Presidential Distinguished Lecture Series through the Center for the Study of HBCUs here at Virginia Union. We had Roland Martin, was a dynamic session. He'll be back this coming up Wednesday for part 2. And then next month, we welcome Professor Michael Eric Dyson, who's going to, no doubt, just drop the mic all over the place, I'm sure, talking about race and racial issues and some of his latest writings and scholarship. And so this gives us an opportunity to bring these lectures to people. You don't have to be in Richmond anymore to get access to the Virginia Union educational experience. And that's been really, really important to us, especially to me as a provost, because part of what I see as my charge is to help us live up to our mission and our vision. And this is just another step in us living out our access mission of making sure that learners have access to the high quality instruction and teaching and learning that goes on here. In future initiatives through the VUU Global platform, we're going to be rolling out several certificates, webinars. We will be hosting conferences. So I hope folks will stay tuned for VUU Global. It is already launched and on the move. It's really an exciting initiative that's really fits into our academic plan.
What are some of some of the contributions of Virginia Union that they've made over the years, and you see and what do you see as a potential of the Center for the Study of HBCUs?
Virginia Union has, for a long time, been, a go-to resource for state agencies and local groups and organizations if they ever wanted to get a pulse of what's going on in Black and Brown communities in the state of Virginia, especially in the city of Richmond. They wanted to partner with Black and Brown communities. They wanted to understand, how do we really target or get a clear sense of, whether it's mental health and public health disparities or educational access and even some of the economic development opportunities. They want to get a sense of that. They come to Virginia Union as a foremost partner in that work. And so that's been an important role for Virginia Union to play and to continue playing it. It's also the case that, I, as Provost, just launched a faculty spotlight series that shines a light on our faculty, scholars, and experts, because we've got, world-class faculty right now working on the whole COVID crisis. We've got individuals who are working on trying to erase and remove public health disparities in communities of color. We've got scholars over in our School of Theology who have always, been studying and looking at the relationship and the nexus between, say, public health and faith. And so this has been the position and in many ways the platform of Virginia Union University. But what the Center for the Study of HBCUs does for both Virginia Union and our sister brother HBCUs across the country is it becomes now a national research and resource center for generating research and information and data about the, right now contributions and future sustainability of Black colleges. It will be a place that will publish national reports about the impact of HBCUs on local economic development and on leadership development and on the sustainability and flourishing of local communities and cities and neighborhoods. And so that's really exciting because I think that what has been missing is that kind of engine or space that really cultivates that research, that convenes the HBCU community, that curates all of the Black intellectual property that exists. I'm talking publications, presentations, books, conferences, podcasts, and then really learn how to convert all of that Black intellectual property into Black intellectual capital that is sustainable, that is durable over the course of time, that will help sustain our institutions. As I said earlier, there was a point in time in our history where we had over 130 HBCUs. We're down to about 100 now because some have merged, some have closed. And, I'm one who believes we can't allow another HBCU to close. And so the center becomes, I hope, a really strong support and tool in that and helping making sure that these institutions can stand the test of time. I think that enables or supports both Virginia Union, but also the broader HBCU community, and especially the private HBCUs. But my final point here, which you mentioned a little bit earlier too, Kevin, is, right now we're all, I don't mean just HBCUs, I mean all of higher education is waiting, WADING, waiting and making its way through this global historic pandemic, which has impacted higher education in ways we couldn't imagine. We had to pivot very quickly in the spring to get things online. As you mentioned, the VUU Global initiative was already in our academic plan. We planned to do that. What COVID did was it accelerated our plans and taught us that we don't need to wait for tomorrow. We can do things now. We were able to pivot very quickly in the spring to transition all of our learners online. Before we know it, we realized we had the infrastructure and the resources to launch VUU Global. Well, we're making our way through this historic pandemic, and I think what we're learning is that, especially for us enrollment-driven institutions, that while we are all sort of in this together, we are at times having to deal with different aspects of the problem, maybe different manifestations of the problem, right? So, for our institution for the fall, we went with a hybrid model where some of our students learned virtually, some of them were living on campus and taking some courses on campus. As we think about the spring, we're thinking about which do we have to do. But remember, as an enrollment-driven institution, where that is a major supplier of our resources, we're listening to the voices and the needs of our students who, regardless of the pandemic, are saying, please, I want to have a college experience. I want to be on campus. I'll socially distance. I'll wear my mask, but I still want to be able to engage with my peers in safe and responsible ways. And so now that shapes our plans for the spring. I know that there are many other private institutions and certainly private HBCUs that are in that similar predicament where we're trying to, wear multiple hats at once and figure our way through this. And so the Center for the Study of HBCUs becomes a mechanism for bringing those communities that really in the past have not come together very much, to bring us together, to think together, to plan together, and to find solutions.
Wow, that was a lot of food for thought that you provided us. So we'd like to thank our guest today, Provost and Senior Vice President of Virginia Union University, Dr. Terrell Strayhorn, for coming by the show today.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Thank you, Kevin, for the opportunity, and we appreciate all that you're doing to share our story with your various networks.
Once again, my name is Kevin Boston Hill, and thank you all for listening to Instruction Discussion right here on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.